Chantal, the running tour guide, together with Dr. Book. You find yourselves with us in the middle of the wilderness, and we're carrying on with the theme of Herod.
Yalla, let's go. Herod, it's not that he had a persecution complex, he just thought that everybody was out to get him, and built a whole string of fortresses in the desert. Two are very famous, Herodian and Masada, the others less so. Today we are trying to find some of the lesser known Herodian fortresses.
Where are we headed?
Welcome to the desert zone. We are looking for Hyrcania. Hyrcania, or can we? We'll soon find out.
Okay, and we're on our way in search of Hyrcania. Somewhere here amongst these hills, we have to find it. There's quite a lot of rolling hills and lots of humps along the route, but you know you're in Israel when how's the scene?
Oh, they've definitely got the hump.
Let's see if this one's faster than us. Let's go.
Yo!
Yalla. Huh. They're pretty quick. Boy, sounds like indigestion.
Yo!
Whoa, that's what you call camel dust.
Sam's choking in the camel dust. There he is.
Wow, what a scene. This is like a camel crossing migration in the desert. Wow, welcome to the Holy Land. Okay, we're getting somewhere. We're now dropping into Nachal Schacha. And this Nachal, a stream, which is a dry stream, is mentioned in the book of Joshua, connecting us with the location where we are. And today it's dry, but if you come back here in the winter months, from about October through to February, there can be flash floods pouring down these hills, coming from Jerusalem, going down towards the East Sea, the Dead Sea, and gorgeous terrain. Oh, whoa! Check at this! Wow. I wonder what these could be. Any ideas, Dr. Book?
Well, I don't want to bore you, but these are borot. Borot mayim. These are water holes. One of the big things in the desert, if you're going to live here, is how to survive without water. And as my earnest colleague said, we have flash floods here. 3 days of flash flooding filled up 40,000 cubic liters on Masada, 14 cisterns. And we're about to look for Herod's mini fortress. This is already a sign that there's human habitation close by, because these two massive water holes are designed for capturing the water in the flash floods. You'll notice it's right off the stream itself. The torrent of water will come in. If going to waste, there'll be a small dam diverting the water into these systems. Definitely signs of 2,000-year-old hydraulic engineering here.
Fascinating, Dr. Book. And would you agree with me that this was most probably covered over, and over time it has collapsed? So in other words, the minute I step into this cavity, above me would be the roof of the cistern.
Absolutely, and that's the giveaway over there.
Yeah, have a look here. You can see parts of the walls still remaining, which of course was plastered. Here's the ancient plaster. Without this, limestone, which is porous, would just drink the water. So you need the plaster. But wow, antiquity is just everywhere. Let's have a closer look here. It's lovely and cool as you enter. Clear remains of human activity dating back to the period of Hyrcanus, hence the name Hyrcania. What years would we be talking?
Well, the Maccabees ruled from 163 BCE till 63 BC, when the Roman general Pompey took over the empire. And then the Roman Empire was from 63 BCE all the way until its collapse after it became the Byzantine Empire in the 7th century. So these systems will probably date somewhere between the 1st century BCE and the 1st century CE. Somewhere in that 200-year period, about 2,000 years ago, these systems were built in the desert.
Check you on the hill. Okay, we're ascending. Check how steep this is. There we go. Here's the path. It's particularly hard to put this into words, but seeing so many different types of paths converging here. If you look on the other side of the valley, you can see there's a man's path, steep descent down into Nachal Chacha. And then if you look at these paths behind me, you can see ancient shepherd's paths, goats and sheep's paths that crisscross this landscape. It's actually really changed the landscape. And if you look down here, this is exactly what we need to be finding. This is what you can call a little bit of a surface dig. And Dr. Book has just picked up.
This is what's called a diagnostic shard. The very top of it is part of the rim of a pot. So the three thick parts of the pot are the shard, are the top, the rim, the base, and a handle. So these are the thick parts, and these are what are usually preserved. So this is a 2,000-year-old pot.
Get a hold of that, or get a handle of that.
George Friedrich Handel.
That's it. So that's exactly what I was trying to say to you. You know, it's layers of history. You can feel the generations of man and civilization that have been connected to these hills. But what's beautiful about it is you're seeing it in its authentic, naked, kind of original scene. It's always been like this. And this is what it's about. Come and experience the land. When you walk these hills, you are walking generations of history, which is just so thick and so tangible that it leaves you speechless. That's pretty much it. So let me keep quiet and just enjoy this last little climb before we crest the hill of history, from the period of the Maccabees, from the period of Herod, from the period of the Bible. Here it is, one more part. We thought we were at the top, not yet. Stay tuned. Dr. Book, I got a feeling it's coming up. There she is, in all her glory. Wow. So what are your impressions?
For once, my friend, I'm speechless. In the words of the two famous Jewish songwriters, Shimon and Garfunkel, let us enjoy the sound of silence.
Sound of silence. Do 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 do. being here, appreciating the silence. Just want to point out modern water capture systems in the desert. If you look down here in the middle of the valley, it probably is a JNF catchment dam where they catch all of the runoff water that comes from the mountains of Judea. Oh, and look behind me, I haven't seen that yet. You can actually see the outskirts of Jerusalem. You can see the villages on the hill. That's probably right next to Abu Dis, ancient Bethany, where Lazarus was risen from the dead. And close to that you'll have the mountains of the Mount Olives. But talking about the water catchment systems, you saw the cisterns from 2,000 years ago. Here we have modern cisterns capturing this water and using it for agriculture. But I think it's time for a drink. Do you have any water on you? Fine, let's drink some of this ice cold water. Location, location, location. It's the last conical hill on the edge. Oh, there's a fox, a red desert fox.
Yeah, you're right.
See it running down?
Uh-huh.
There it goes. Wow.
Amazing, well spotted.
Thank you. Anyway, so that hill you can see is strategically located on the edge of this ridge, which overlooks a wide plateau. And then there's a secondary ridge where there's the sharp drop going down towards the Dead Sea. And I'm not sure if you guys can see on the horizon, you can make out the mountains of Moab, which is today in the Hashemite kingdom of Jordan. And those hills are higher than where we are. But location, right? Location, location, location.
And back in Herods, let's not forget, those mountains of the Hashemite kingdom of Jordan, which were part of the British Mandate to Palestine, were once where the Roman Empire entered. That was where the border of the Parthian Empire and the Roman Empire was. The Parthians were the Romans' enemy to the east. This location we're about to enter is also a strategic border fortress protecting the eastern half of the Roman Empire. Amazing.
All makes sense to me. The land comes alive, reading the historical texts. Check this out. No drone required, but here we have drone-like footage of a herd of camels. Called a herd? No, it's a caravan of camels.
Get the flock out of here.
Check how this landscape changes. All these colored rocks, magnificent geological formations, and the color of these stones. The reds, the blacks, the yellows, the pinks. And we've reached it. Wow! What is this?
2,000 years ago, this is remains of a water system and hydraulic system that brought water into the fort over there. Look how well it's preserved. Untouched.
Untouched,
Beautiful.
unexcavated. Dam walls, this could have been housing the water. Damned if you do, damned if you don't, damned if we know.
Meanwhile, have you heard the story about the 3 wells?
No?
Well, well, well.
Absolutely incredible. Let's feel the history here. Look how the path winds up here. This is like the serpentine path at Masada. Check it out. Come, Mr. Book. Up we go. Sorry, Dr. Book. Forgive me, I've sinned. It's clear as daylight. And boy, is it daylight. It's now about 34 degrees. But if you look behind me, now I'm convinced it's unquestionably some sort of a water cavity. Looks like it was divided into sections, into different pools, where the aqueduct would catch the water, force them into these cavities, and lo and behold, you had ice cold water in the heart of the desert.
Wow, all excavated virgin territory.
unexcavated glory.
I just walked up here and found remains already of a Roman period roofing tile and some terrasse from a mosaic floor. Let's go and see where these puzzles fit in to the fort.
Nice. I just want to plug you guys in as to where we are on the land. So, pointing in this direction, we are finding ourselves midway between Jerusalem and the Dead Sea. Somewhere along this valley, you can see the road going via Jericho down towards the northern part of the Dead Sea. So we find ourselves somewhere here in between. And to plug you into the time period, here we have the timeline. Hold that up for a second. And we are going to be dealing with a period from the Hellenistic period, Hasmonean period, Roman period. So we're talking about about 300-year stretch of history?
More or less.
More or less. But probably focusing more on the Hasmonean and Roman period. And Herod comes into the picture right here, 37 to 4 BCE. That was the end of his life on this physical world. But let's plug into where we are. What can we see here, Tovia, and what do we know about this site? Why is it an unexcavated site? I mean, I really see the potential of this place. It's just remarkable what still can be achieved in terms of studying and understanding the site.
Well, there's so much archaeological sites in Israel that there's simply not the budget to excavate everywhere. And this is incredibly difficult to get to, as we've seen by our run here. And then really that's the same remoteness as what's preserved the site as well, from grave robbers, from antiquities thieves. So almost for 2,000 years since it was destroyed in a massive earthquake in the 7th century, it's more or less in situ. And even if you look down to our feet over here, we see these mosaic floors in the terrace laid 2,000 years ago. Now what's the giveaway that it's a bit of a luxury palace is, in addition to the white tiles, we also have red tiles as well. We have a colour.
Here's some black tiles. Where are the red tiles?
Over here. So you have the coloured mosaic pattern over here. And of course the big question on top of our hill fortress, where is the water stored? Let's go and have a look. What do you need when you build a fortress? You need the 4 Ds. You need it to be a place that you can drive to, a place you can defend, a place where you can get food, a place where you can get drink. Dining, drink, defense, driving. Let's look over there. Cistern number 1, brethren and cistern.
Brethren and cistern.
With a hydraulic plaster. Over here we have what is probably a bathing pool with stairs going down to it, covered over by these blocks. And let's see what's down here, folks. Inside the cistern is a column base and a column drum. Now this is how Herod built in the desert. We have the same features on Masada and in Herodian, where Josephus mentioned there were long marble columns, but the reality was they were optical illusions. They were built drums, one on top of the other. And once they were completed and stacked on top of each other, they were covered with plaster made to look like one long column. In the corner, where the corners met, 2 columns were carved one next to the other, so the cross section looked like a heart. And there's one right over here. This is a corner column from 2,000 years ago from the Herodian palace on top, which would have ended in a heart shape over here, just lying here in the middle of the desert.
Absolutely magnificent. My vision is to get this as a base of a table, a beautiful glass top, and this underneath, coffee table, lovely cup of coffee. Actually, at this stage, I'd like an ice cold.
Cup of ice beer.
Oh, ice cold beer coming up.
L'chaim.
L'chaim. Never remove anything from an antiquity site.
Perish the thought. Who would ever do that? And what have the Romans ever done for us? Well, they did build aqueducts, as we saw. They built roads, and also look at this technology. This arch has stood the test of time for 2,000 years. Aren't you glad I told you that? And inside is a 4th massive water system. Huge. This water cistern alone could hold thousands of cubic liters, and the arch has stood intact the test of time for 2,000 years with hydraulic plaster still attached to the walls. They certainly don't make them like this anymore. Hello, Herod!
He didn't answer back.
That's because he's dead.
And we'll finish off with a view. Have a look at this.
Smart view.
Ah! Yeah, we're in the Holy Land. Look at this hole. Woo! Stunning. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, hope you enjoyed that little exploring on top of Hyrcania, Hyrcanus. Let's talk a little bit about Herod. Let's finish off with getting a little feel of who he was as a man. And what was he doing with all these desert fortresses that we're going to be exploring with you? We've done Masada off the beaten track. We've now touched on Hyrcania. Next up, Kypros, Sartaba, Herodian. Plenty more to come, but a little bit about Herod.
Herod was a walking contradiction. On the one hand, he was one of the greatest engineers of the Roman world. On the other hand, he was crazy, with a capital C. Loco, mad, loony, but an incredible builder. And this is just one of many fortresses he built all the way along the eastern border of the Roman Empire. With Parthia, he built a whole line of defensive fortresses, the most famous being Masada, and all with the exception of one on the western shore of the Dead Sea. The one he built on the eastern shore was called Machaerus, which is in today's Jordan. And nothing was impossible to him. No, it can't be done was not in his language. And that is why we have this fortress here with no natural water except the flash floods, and yet he found a way through incredible engineering to provide it with year-round water, as he did all his desert fortresses. And we saw some of those cisterns up there.
But rumor has it, with all its beauty here and the water and the life, it became a place of death.
Right, because Herod was a megalomaniac. He was also a maniac, and he thought that everybody was out to get him. So what he did is he replaced the very popular Hasmoneans, who were Jewish kings, and even though they'd also been slightly tyrannical, people's memory got a bit hazy and people looked back on the good old days. And Herod, in order to cement his popularity with the people, married a Hasmonean princess. But then he was concerned about the family, so he invited them all to his wedding, and he killed almost all of them. Now, people might understand killing your mother-in-law, but everybody. The only person he let alive was his wife Miriam's brother, with a very Jewish name of Aristobulus, and he made him the high priest. And he was such a good-looking guy that people saw him and said, "Wow, it's a shame we don't have any Hasmoneans ruling us anymore." That evening, he invited his brother-in-law to a swim in the palace pool, very near here in Jericho. And even though he was a very good swimmer, he died in a mysterious drowning accident as two of Herod's bodyguards pulled him under the water. And that was the course of his life. He murdered those nearest and dearest to him. He had two sons, Alexander and Aristobulus.
Ah, yes!
And for their 18th birthday present, after the most expensive education money could buy, they both got the same present, death by strangulation.
Rumor has it, Hyrcania was the place that he got rid of Herod Antipater.
Right, the last remaining son, Herod Antipater, who thought he was going to get the kingdom, talked a bit too soon about taking over from his old man. And Herod, who was on his deathbed, ordered his son's death as well. And that took place right behind us. Finally, Herod's beloved wife, Miriam. She wasn't his BFF after he strangled her children, and he killed her as well. But guess what happened after?
Madly in love.
He was in love, and he couldn't believe what he'd done, so he decided he was going to, this is an SAT word, it's called necrophilia. Preserve the body in honey, in case you think the Talmud is boring. And he carried on doing the deed, and got himself into a very sticky situation. And that is why, to this day, Americans call their wives
Honey.
honey. He was a sick puppy, but an incredible engineer, all rolled up into one.
Interesting stuff. Peace. Well, it's getting a little hot out. I don't know if you can hear it. Whoops.
The vultures are circling.
The vultures are circling and the ravens are circling. I think they see us as fresh meat. Or should I say, dead meat. Carry on. Let's carry on.
Let's carry on back to the car. This is the path down here, no?
Down
We
here.
have one person who was incredibly cruel and yet built buildings of incredible beauty. And this beautiful, quiet desert fortress,
Hyrcania, would you believe, was the site where he got rid of his very own son, Herod Antipater. What can I tell you, ladies and gentlemen? The history is deep, the history is rich, the stories are sometimes tragic, but here we are, living history, not his story, our story. Smash the subscribe button. Trust you enjoyed that experience with us. Follow us as we continue searching Herod's fortresses in the desert, namely Alexandrion, Sartaba, Kypros, Masada, Herodian, but to name a few. See us around. Dr. Book will be joining me on the journey. Peace. I'd like to wish all my Jewish followers an easy fast, a fast of return. May it bring on a good new year, a sweet new year, and blessings to all of you. Have a Shabbat Shalom, a happy, healthy weekend.
Shana Tova. Happy New Year.
Shana Tova, a happy new year, sweetness on the tongue. So those were the ancient ships of the desert. Here is our modern ship of the desert. That's a Jewish camel.